Go inside the studio with the Ricky Harris Media Podcast. Here's your host, Ricky Harris.
What is up? What is up, everybody? Oh my God, it's so good to be back. I am your host, Ricky Harris, just like our announcer said. Want to give a shout out, a plug to NFT Colors on Fiverr. That's NFT Colors on Fiverr. What an incredible job. I reached out to him and asked him if you can record a voiceover for me, an intro. And he was more than welcome to do it. More than glad to do it, and he did an excellent job. I love the way that sounded. Wrote up a little script for him, and he produced that, and got back to me in about, it wasn't long at all, maybe a couple hours, and wow, that's awesome. I am doing voiceover now. I'm starting to dive into that world. I've kind of done that professionally anyway with radio, but now I'm doing it exclusively, just voiceover. So doing clips of voice, not necessarily live production anymore. And it's a blast, but I felt it was a little bit weird to do your own voiceover. I've listened to voiceover artists do their own intro, and if you can put on a different voice, make it sound different, you can really pull that off, and it sounds great. I really can't do that. I've tried, and I don't know. To someone else, it may sound different. To me, I can always tell it's me, but I guess because, I know it's me. But I always thought that was kind of weird to do your own voiceover. So I greatly appreciate that. NFT Colors on Fiverr. So that's what I'm doing now. I've dug into the Fiverr world. I have a client now, and it is a blast. It is too much fun. I've always wanted to not necessarily make a lot of money, not necessarily make this my primary job out of the studio. But I've always wanted it to, at least make it break even. And that's what I'm able to do now. And it's been a blast. So what I'm doing now is I am doing video narration. So any kind of narration you see, a good example is Mike Rowe on Deadliest Catch. Those of you that have watched any kind of reality TV, you know Mike Rowe. And those of you that have watched QVC back in the 90s, know Mike Rowe as well. He was on QVC there for a while. He had a great show back in San Francisco. Somebody's got to do it, and so that's where Dirty Jobs come about. But that's a good example. I'd say that's probably my favorite voiceover artist. I think he really brings a sense of reality to it, and that's what's really popular now is a voice you listen to, either it being on a podcast, it being on a commercial, a television show, a movie. You hear a voice, but you don't see the person speaking, but you can still feel like it's genuine, like they're really talking to you. And I think he really, really does a fantastic job at that. So I mentioned I've done radio. I did radio back in the mid-'90s, which was a really interesting time for pop music. I was a pop music disc jockey, and at that time, we were playing disc in the 90s. I guess the late 80s, too. It was CDs. So it was actually a real disc jockey. And I guess you can say you are now, too, if you're doing radio now, you're spinning hard drives. Get really technical. A lot of them are solid state now, but whatever, It's still a disc jockey, a DJ. That's what I did from 1995 until 2000, and it was a blast, especially running the board. That's what I love. I love the engineering side of it. I love being in a room with a bunch of equipment and then making something happen. I've always thought that was a really cool thing. I've always really enjoyed that. I've always been super fascinated by the technical side, the engineering side, and just playing around with a bunch of equipment, learning how it all works together, making it all work together, and making something really cool out of it. Using this equipment, working with different talent, working with various people, putting your heads together and making something happen. And at that time, I was doing it live, which was really cool. You put all this stuff together and make it come out on the air live. And one thing I did love about radio, especially live radio, is you get to put your personality out there. That's your title, is an on-air personality. So, anybody that knows me personally knows that I'm kind of a silly guy, kind of a goofy guy, kind of a big goofy guy. And I was able to do that, especially working the night shift, because it's a little experimental. That's where everybody starts out. So you're on the air and you're kind of experimenting around, and I would have people call in and have them tell jokes on the air, and I would do silly stuff intentionally and unintentionally. One time I did burp on the air. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad everybody listening got a kick out of that. I've got a lot of that. That's a good quick way to light up the phone lines when you're doing radio is burp on the air. I'm glad I got a good laugh out of that. That's some of my best humor, is when it's completely unintentional. So I did Radio 95 until 2000. And then in actually 1999, I overlapped there for about 6 months to a year. I went into television. And in television, I wasn't on the air, but I was supporting, and everything that I did, basically everything you can think of supporting the on-air is what I did. So I started out working in production, so running camera, teleprompter, Chiron, that kind of thing. And then I got into working master control, which I absolutely love. That's one of my favorite jobs, is being in a control room and running it. Because just like I was saying earlier, you have all this room full of equipment, you have all these ideas, you have all this stuff, and you put it all together. At that time too, it was live, right out the door through the microwave link to the transmitter site into viewers' homes, and that was a blast. So I did that up into 2005. I kind of was voluntold to do IT, and those of you that have done IT or doing IT, it's an interesting job, to say the least. But I wasn't crazy about IT. I mean, I was going to school for it, but I really wanted to do entertainment and have more of a connection to what goes out on the air. And I kind of lost that. So I kind of got burned out. That kind of really made me get burned out of the entire industry. So I got out of that, went back to school, did some other odd jobs. And ever since then, that was summer of, I believe it was summer. Maybe, no, it might have been early fall of 2005. I've always been itching to get back into it. And it's been a blast. I'm able to do that. I'm going to tell you more details on the upcoming episode. This is not going to be a very long show. Actually, all these shows are not going to be very long. They're all going to be around 20 minutes or so. But the next episode, I'm going to tell you about some more projects that I've been doing, kind of really scratching that itch. And I do want to talk a lot about, on this show, kind of really goes hand in hand with the Cody and Ricky show. It's a lot about doing things yourself, figuring it out, and learning about it. Learning about this, if you want to do this, and I highly recommend you do it, at least for a part-time thing, because it's so much fun. And it really does, it really does help you out, I think, mentally, where you can, it kind of forces you outside of your comfort zone. So if you're like me, or anywhere remotely like me, you're kind of a shy person naturally. So when you're doing this kind of thing, like doing the podcast or doing voiceover or doing any kind of acting, any kind of performance, stage performance, it really does kind of force you out of your comfort zone, and it really makes you put all that aside, and you have a mission, and you do it. And I think that's really good for someone that, that may have that hurdle that they're trying to overcome. They're trying to make it not impede them anymore. And I think performance in general, whether it being playing an instrument, singing, getting up on the stage, doing comedy. I think comedy is really good, especially open mic. Oh my God, I've always wanted to loved it. I've always wanted to do that. But the closest thing I come to doing that was a best man speech for my best friend's wedding, and I kind of wrote the script. It was very influenced by the delivery of stand-up comedy. So that's the closest I ever come to that. That was too much fun. But I think it's really good for anyone, even if you don't have that. I think it's good to kind of, it's good for the mind in general. It really does kind of force you to kind of rethink things, and it kind of, you're presented with something. Let's say you're presented with a script, and they tell you in the script, this is the voice style they want. They tell you, what the purpose of this production is, and they let you run with it. That's what's really cool about this is, there are some directed voiceover sessions, yes, but a vast majority of them are not. They just send it to you. Hey, record this and send it back to me, and you do it. And it's really good for the mind to sit there and have this. Think about it a little bit, how you're going to present it, what kind of tone you're going to do. I'm going to do a really bassy tone. I'm going to do a really high pitch and excited tone. I'm really excited to be here. Or you're going to do a really monotone. I am really not excited to be here. It all depends on the subject matter, right? You don't want to do an enthusiastic read for a commercial for a product that isn't not necessarily the best thing, for enthusiasm. It's just down to business, and you're just coming across as someone that's just delivering the information. So it's really cool. I think that's really good for the mind to do that. Okay. So you're listening to all this, and you're thinking, wow, this sounds pretty cool. This sounds interesting, but I've seen your studio. If you haven't, check me out on Twitter, Ricky Radio, RSCKY Radio. I'm a tech geek. I'm always posting videos, pictures of the studio, and you're looking at that and going, okay, Ricky, I've seen your studio. Really? How expensive is this to get into? And it's really not that bad at all. I love this stuff, so I kind of naturally collect a lot of this gear, and plug to eBay. Thank you, eBay. A lot of it is kind of second-hand equipment. There's a few things that I bought new, but yeah, you don't need all of this. It's great to have all of it because it gives you lots of flexibility. And the main reason why I have so much gear in here is because I also do music recording. The actual intro for this podcast, I actually recorded that. I did all the instruments, did all the recording, and all the mixed that. Coming up on the next episode and future episodes, we're going to talk more about music recording. That's something that I've been wanting to do as well, in addition to my voiceover work, is being able to create original music for voiceover. I think it's a really good thing to have, original music. And I'm loving doing that. But that's the reason why this studio is a little more complicated than it needs to be for voiceover. But really, okay, if you want to do this, what does it take? What kind of budget? What does it take to do this? And really, you're looking at about $200. That's it. $200. Because I've had people ask me this a lot of times. They find out that I do podcasts, I do voiceover. Oh, interesting. So what? So I got a friend of mine that wants to do a podcast, which is great. It's such a great medium because you can do a podcast about anything, and I love the way that it's delivered, and I love the way it's like a DVR for radio. You can listen to it whenever you want to, and you can potentially right out of the gate have a worldwide audience. It's great, but they're always curious about it, and it's a lot of times the technical side is very mysterious to them. It's not bad at all. And I'll tell you, this is what I've done recently with my studio. I mean, it looks rather complicated, but it's way simpler than it used to be. I've taken a very simplistic approach and kind of scaled everything back and made it really simplistic. That way it makes the process of recording a lot easier, a lot less tedious. So really, all you need to get it done, assuming that you already have a laptop, or really you can do it with your cell phone now too. So assuming you have some kind of computer that can interface with the to the internet and then get the file out. So let's say you already have that. So $200, yeah, you can make it happen. And the great thing about podcasting, it's not going to turn listeners off too bad if you have a little bit of echo. Hopefully this room sounds better now. I don't know if you listen to the older episodes. I still have them up. You can hear a lot of room reverberance. It's not really pleasant. It sounds kind of bad. So you don't have to have a super treated room. A good workaround with that is just record in your closet, because clothes, any kind of fabric, especially blankets and comforters and that kind of thing, any kind of puffy thing made out of cotton, works really good for absorbing sound, absorbing your voice, and then just kind of killing it right there. Technically speaking, what it actually does is when your voice, the sound waves hits that fabric, it bounces around in between all the different fibers in there, and it generates heat. So it takes your voice and turns it into heat. It dissipates it, which is really interesting. So it turns it into another form of energy. Anyway, don't mean to get that geeky, but really you could go into your closet, set up a microphone, and record in there. Okay, so what do I need to make that happen? So a microphone, a Shure SM58, they're around $100, and a portable recorder. I really like the Tascam DR40X. Is that what this is? Yes, Tascam DR-40X. A pair of headphones, something like some $20 headphones you can get from Best Buy, and a microphone wire. Again, another $20. So, and I would definitely recommend buying all this on eBay or Reverb or something. Buying it secondhand, as long as it's in good condition, you don't mind a few scratches on it. Nothing wrong with used equipment at all. I'm still kind of nervous about buying speakers used unless I can physically hear them first. But really anything else, yeah, you're pretty safe buying it secondhand. But yeah, so a DR40X, I would recommend that. You can get those somewhere around $60, made by Tascam. You plug your microphone into that, plug the other end into your microphone, plug your headphones in. That's really good to play it back and listen, to see how everything sounds. And then it records an SD card, and you can pop the SD card out, put it into a card reader, and then plug that into your phone or plug that into your laptop. A lot of laptops will actually have an SD card reader. And that's it. It's so simple. And every piece of software that you need to do any kind of editing, if you need to, it's all available for free through the Apple App Store, Google Play, Windows, Mac. It's all available and it's free. And it is really, really fun. So I highly recommend you do that and get into this world. So get out there and get you some equipment. Get on the internet and get you some equipment. If you're fortunate enough to live in cities like Atlanta, New York, I know for a fact have stores that you can go to. Lenox Mall in Atlanta, Guitar Center, which is pretty much every major city, B&H in New York. Wonderful resources of not only the equipment, of course, but the technical know-how. Go and check that equipment out and play around with it. Podcasting, there's a Rode mixing board. I can't think of the name of it right now. The Rodecaster, that's it. The Rode Rodecaster. Now, what this is a combination of a digital mixer. It actually has pads where you can fire off sound effects, which is pretty fun. And it's a built-in recorder. It's a multi-track recorder, too. So you can just have this device, your microphone's plugged into it, record everything, and then after the fact, go back and readjust levels. If you have someone that's on, or you're that person that's really loud, and your guest is not quite as loud, you could tweak all that later. Yeah, and of course you can do that on the Tascam too, but you've only got 2 channels to play with. This has more. But really, it's extremely simple. And reach out to me on Twitter, Ricky Radio, RICKY Radio. I'm always glad to help. This is one of my favorite parts is engineering, audio engineering, and I will help you out any way I can. Coming up next week, it's going to be more about what is going on in the studio, what I've been up to. That's it for now. Thanks, everybody, for listening to us and sticking around. This is the Ricky Harris Media Podcast.